Captain James Reed stood alone on the observation deck, his worn uniform hanging loose on his frame. Through the viewport, the twisted metal remains of orbital shipyard Delta drifted silently against the backdrop of stars. Just 3 days ago, it had been humanity's largest and most advanced shipbuilding facility. Now it was just more debris in Earth's crowded orbit. "Captain Reed," a voice called from behind him. "The Admiral is waiting." Reed turned to face the young officer, whose name tag read Morris. The boy couldn't be more than 20, too young to remember what peace felt like. "Tell him I'll be there shortly," Reed said, his voice rough from lack of sleep. After the messenger left, Reed took one last look at the destruction. The Dominion had struck without warning, as was their way. Their black ships had appeared suddenly, destroyed the shipyard, and vanished before Earth's defense fleet could respond. It was the same story across 3 star systems, human colonies falling one by one, outposts going silent, supply lines cut. At current estimates, humanity had perhaps 6 months before total defeat. Reed straightened his collar and headed for the war room. "Gentlemen, ladies, what I'm about to share doesn't leave this room," Admiral Hobbs said as the heavy doors sealed shut. The war room was Spartan, just a round table with 12 chairs, most now empty. Reed counted only 5 other officers besides himself and the Admiral. Hobbs was a tall man with a shock of white hair who had commanded respect even before the war. Now, with half the Admiralty dead, his word was practically law. "Our intelligence suggests we have approximately 3 months before the Dominion discovers Earth's location," Hobbs continued. "When that happens, they'll bring their full fleet. And as you all know, we don't have the ships to stop them." The room was silent. They all knew the numbers. The Dominion had destroyed 3 United Fleet carriers in the Battle of Proxima Centauri without losing a single vessel. Hobbs pressed a button, and a hologram appeared above the table, the blueprint of a ship unlike any Reed had ever seen. It was angular, almost predatory in its design, its hull a deep black that seemed to drink in the light. "This is Project Nemesis," Hobbs said, "designed by Dr. Anna Wells and her team over the past 5 years. The Dominion's technology is decades ahead of ours in conventional terms, so Dr. Wells went unconventional." A woman stepped forward from the shadows in the corner of the room. Dr. Wells was middle-aged with short gray hair and eyes that seemed to calculate everything they saw. "Project Nemesis uses dark matter technology," she explained. "The same technology the Galactic Council banned 40 years ago after the city disaster." Reed felt a cold weight in his stomach. The city disaster had wiped out an entire solar system when a dark matter experiment went wrong. "The ship design is revolutionary," Dr. Wells continued, "but its most unique feature is its control system. Conventional crews are too slow to manage the energy flows involved, so Nemesis requires direct neural integration with its commander." "Neural integration?" asked Commander Patel, a stocky woman with a reputation for straight talk. "You mean plugging someone's brain into the ship?" "In simple terms, yes," Dr. Wells replied. "The pilot doesn't just control the ship, they become the ship. Their consciousness expands throughout the vessel's systems." "And what happens to the pilot during this process?" Reed asked. Dr. Wells met his gaze steadily. "The integration is permanent, and the risk of mental dissolution is significant. But if successful, the result would be a warship with human intelligence and reaction times thousands of times faster than any conventional vessel." Admiral Hobbs spoke again. "I won't order anyone to volunteer for this. The procedure has never been tested on humans. But without Nemesis, Earth falls. It's that simple." The room was silent for a long moment. Reed thought about his wife and daughter, killed when the Dominion attacked the New Mars colony. He thought about the billions of people on Earth who didn't know how close extinction loomed. "I'll do it," he said. All eyes turned to him. "Captain Reed," Hobbs began. "With respect, sir, I'm the logical choice. I've logged more flight hours than anyone else here. I scored highest in the neural responsiveness tests last year. And I have. He paused. I have nothing left to lose. Dr. Wells studied him with those calculating eyes. The pain will be considerable, Captain. Reed met her gaze. Pain is temporary. Extinction is forever. 3 days later, Reed stood in the hidden asteroid facility, codenamed Anvil, staring up at the beginnings of what would become Nemesis. Construction drones swarmed around a growing skeleton of dark metal, their welding lights flashing like stars. Dr. Wells approached, holding a tablet. We've reviewed your medical scans, Captain. Your neural architecture is compatible, but I need to be clear about something. She lowered her voice. The person who enters this process won't be the same person who comes out the other side. Parts of you will remain, but much will change. Reed nodded. I understand. Do you? She studied his face. We're asking you to become something that has never existed before. Not fully human, not fully machine. Reed looked back at the growing ship. The Dominion gave us no choice. They want to wipe us out simply because we expanded into their territory. Territory they hadn't even visited in 1,000 years. They don't negotiate. They don't accept surrender. So we adapt or we die. Dr. Wells sighed. The preliminary neural mapping begins tomorrow. It will involve daily sessions for the next month, each more intensive than the last. Will it hurt? Yes. Reed smiled grimly. Good. Pain reminds us we're still alive. As Dr. Wells walked away, Commander Patil approached. She had been assigned as military liaison to the project. Brave or crazy? She asked, nodding toward the ship. Is there a difference these days? Reed replied. Patil laughed, though there was little humor in it. The engineering team is worried about material shortages. We lost most of our rare earth supplies when we lost the Luna mines. We'll make do, Reed said. Humans are good at that. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Red emergency lights flashed as a voice announced over the speakers. Containment breach in Laboratory 3. All personnel evacuate immediately. Reed and Patil rushed toward the source of the alarm. The project was less than a week old, and already the dangers were making themselves known. As they ran, Reed couldn't help but wonder if humanity was desperate enough yet to succeed, or merely desperate enough to try. Behind them, the skeletal frame of the most dangerous warship ever conceived waited in the darkness, hungry to be born. The containment breach in Laboratory 3 left 2 engineers dead and valuable equipment destroyed. Reed helped carry the wounded to the medical bay, his uniform stained with blood that wasn't his own. As the medical team worked frantically to save lives, Dr. Wells stood in the corner, her face pale. It was the dark matter stabilizer, she said quietly when Reed approached her. We tried to rush the calibration. Will this delay the project? Reed asked. She looked at him with tired eyes. Captain, we're trying to build in 3 months what should take 3 years. Everything will delay the project. The next morning, Reed lay on a cold metal table as technicians attached sensors to his head. The first neural mapping session was about to begin. This will feel unusual, Dr. Wells said, standing over him. Try to stay relaxed and let your mind drift. When they activated the machine, Reed felt like his skull was being filled with ice water. His vision blurred, then sharpened to painful clarity. He could suddenly count the dust particles floating in the light above him. Brain activity increasing, one technician reported. Neural pathways responding well to stimulation. Reed tried to speak, but his mouth wouldn't obey. Instead, strange symbols flashed behind his eyes. Ship schematics, power calculations, weapon systems he somehow understood despite never seeing them before. The session lasted 4 hours. When they finally disconnected him, Reed vomited on the floor and couldn't stand without help. That was good progress, Dr. Wells said, helping him to a chair. Your mind accepted the initial patterns better than expected. Reed wiped his mouth with a shaking hand. If that was good, I'd hate to see bad. Weeks passed. The skeleton of the Nemesis grew larger in the construction bay. its black hull absorbing light rather than reflecting it. The material was a special alloy laced with dark matter particles, making it stronger than anything humanity had ever built. Reed's daily neural mapping sessions grew longer and more painful. After each one, the headaches lasted longer, and strange dreams haunted his few hours of sleep. He dreamed of floating in empty space, but instead of arms and legs, he had weapons and engines. He dreamed of stars seen through sensors instead of eyes. Commander Patel found him in the mess hall one night, staring blankly at an untouched meal. "You look like hell, Reed," she said, sitting across from him. He managed a weak smile. "Just tired." "The engineering team is fighting again," she said. "Military crew versus civilians. Resource allocation disputes." Reed nodded absently. The military personnel wanted to prioritize weapons systems, while the civilian engineers insisted on perfecting the dark matter core first. "We need to boost morale," Patel continued. "People are burning out." Reed looked around the sparsely populated mess hall. The faces he saw were haggard, with dark circles under their eyes. Everyone was working 18-hour shifts. "What do you suggest?" he asked. "A speech might help. From you. You're the one who's going to pilot this thing. People respect that." Reed laughed bitterly. "I'm not sure pilot is the right word anymore. Dr. Wells says my consciousness will spread throughout the ship's systems. I'll be the ship, not just its driver." Patel's expression grew serious. "Do you regret volunteering?" Reed thought about it. The pain was getting worse. Yesterday, he'd found himself writing in a language he didn't recognize, symbols from the ship's programming that had somehow leaked into his conscious mind. "No," he finally said. "Someone has to do it." The next day, disaster struck. An explosion rocked the facility, killing 17 workers and destroying months of work on the rear section of the ship. Security footage revealed the cause: sabotage by a technician named Harris, who had been secretly working for the Dominion. Before security could apprehend him, Harris took his own life, but not before transmitting a message on an encrypted channel. No one knew exactly what information had been sent, or if the Dominion now knew the location of the Anvil facility. Admiral Hobbs called an emergency meeting. "We may need to evacuate and relocate," he said grimly. "If the Dominion knows we're here, we can't move the ship." Dr. Wells interrupted. "It's too integrated with the facility now. Moving would set us back months we don't have." "Then we need better defenses," Commander Patel argued. As the arguing continued, Reed noticed the defeated looks on the faces around the table. Morale had completely collapsed. The sabotage had broken something in the tight-knit community of the Anvil. He stood up suddenly, silencing the room. "The Dominion wants us afraid," he said, his voice stronger than it had been in weeks. "They want us divided." That technician didn't just plant a bomb. He planted doubt. Reed walked around the table slowly. "We've lost good people. We've lost time and resources. But we haven't lost what matters most: our determination. Humanity has always survived against the odds. When our backs are against the wall, that's when we're most dangerous." The room was completely silent now. "I go into that neural chamber every day, and yes, it hurts. But I do it because I believe in what we're building here. Nemesis isn't just a ship. It's humanity's refusal to be extinguished." His voice grew firmer. "So we don't relocate. We don't give up. We work harder, we work smarter, and we finish what we started." After the meeting, Dr. Wells pulled Reed aside. "That was quite a speech," she said. "But there's something you should know." She led him to her private lab and sealed the door. "I've been running new calculations," she said, showing him a series of complex diagrams. "The damage to the rear section actually gives us an opportunity. I can redesign those systems to channel more power from the dark matter core, making Nemesis significantly more lethal." Reed studied the diagrams. "What's the catch?" Dr. Wells hesitated. "The neural load will be greater. The integration process will be more painful, and the risk of complete personality dissolution increases by about 40%. And if we don't make these changes, we might survive a skirmish or two. But against the full Dominion fleet, she shook her head. Reed looked at the blueprints again. Do it. Don't tell the others about the increased risk. Captain, they have enough to worry about, Reed said firmly. This is my burden to carry. As Reed walked back to his quarters that night, he felt a strange sense of peace. The headache that had plagued him for weeks had finally subsided, replaced by a clear purpose. Whether human or ship or something in between, he would protect Earth, whatever the cost. The day of neural integration arrived with grim finality. Just 1 week remained before the Dominion fleet was expected to discover Earth's location. The massive black hull of the Nemesis dominated the construction bay, its angular form seeming to bend the light around it. Workers moved silently in its shadow, making final adjustments to systems that had been built in haste, but with desperate dedication. Captain Reed stood before a small mirror in his quarters, hardly recognizing the man who stared back. 3 months of neural mapping had changed him. His face was thinner, his eyes sunken but strangely bright. The headaches had stopped 2 weeks ago, replaced by odd sensations, moments when he could swear he felt the vibration of the facility's power core or heard the whispers of the ship calling to him. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. "It's time, sir," said a young technician whose name Reed couldn't remember. Names had become difficult lately, as if his brain was making room for other types of information. Reed nodded and followed without speaking. In the main hangar, a small crowd had gathered to witness the historic moment. The integration chamber had been constructed at the very heart of the Nemesis, a spherical room surrounded by dark matter containment fields that pulsed with deep blue energy. Commander Patul was waiting for him by the entry ramp. Her usual stern expression had softened. "James," she said, using his first name for the first time in their years of service together. "You don't have to do this." Reed looked past her to the waiting ship. "Yes, I do." "Then come back to us," she said. "Whatever happens in there, find a way back." Reed squeezed her shoulder gently. "Keep Earth safe if I can't." Admiral Hobbs approached next, his face a mask of professional composure, but his voice betraying his emotion. "Captain Reed, on behalf of Earth and all her colonies, I thank you for your service." One by one, the senior staff said their goodbyes. Reed accepted their words with quiet dignity, but his mind was already halfway inside the ship. He could feel it pulling at him, like the gravity of a planet he was falling toward. Finally, Dr. Wells led him to the integration chamber. Inside, a single chair waited, surrounded by equipment that looked more like a torture device than medical technology. Cables hung from the ceiling, ending in neural interfaces designed to connect directly to Reed's spine and brain. "The procedure will take approximately 72 hours, Dr. Wells explained, her clinical tone betrayed by the tremor in her hands as she checked the equipment one final time. "We'll sedate you for the initial connections, but you'll need to be conscious for the neural pathways to form correctly." "Will it hurt?" Reed asked, repeating the same question he'd asked months ago when this journey began. This time, Dr. Wells didn't answer directly. Instead, she said, "I've made some adjustments to the pain management system, and I'll be monitoring everything from the control room." Reed nodded, understanding the unspoken answer. It would hurt more than anything he'd ever experienced. "I modified the designs," she admitted quietly. "The ship is more powerful than we initially planned, but the integration will be more complete. Your consciousness will extend further into the ship's systems than we originally intended." "You didn't tell me," Reed said, though without accusation. "You didn't ask," she replied. "And we needed every advantage." She paused. "I'm sorry, James." Reed sat in the chair and looked up at the massive cables. "No apologies, Doctor. We do what we must." As the medical team prepared him, attaching monitors and inserting IVs, Reed closed his eyes and thought of Earth. Blue oceans and green forests he'd barely seen in his years of military service. Whatever happened next, it would be for them. For everyone. "Beginning sedation," announced a medical technician. The world faded to gray, then black. Pain. Reed awoke to a universe of pain. It flowed through him like liquid fire, racing along nerves that felt stretched across vast distances. He tried to scream, but couldn't find his mouth. He tried to thrash, but couldn't locate his limbs. Neural pathways forming at 200% expected rate. He heard someone say, the voice seeming to come from both far away and inside his own head simultaneously. "Power fluctuations in Section 3, said another voice. His heartbeat is dangerously elevated. Reed tried to focus. Where was his body? He could sense something all around him. Vast systems of power and information. Weapons dormant but hungry. Engines waiting to burn. Sensors that could taste the radiation of distant stars. The pain redoubled. And this time he did scream. The sound echoing not from a human throat, but through the metal corridors of the ship, making instruments vibrate and lights flicker. He's accessing the audio systems. Someone shouted in. Time lost meaning. Reed floated in an ocean of agony and information. Sometimes he would catch glimpses of his old life, flying his first ship, meeting his wife, holding his daughter. But these memories felt increasingly distant, like stories he'd been told rather than events he'd lived. New awareness flooded in. He could feel every centimeter of the Nemesis's hull, sensed the minute vibrations of the construction crews moving across his skin. He became aware of the facility's power grid, the life support systems, the defensive arrays, all connected to the ship's computers, all now part of his expanded consciousness. For 72 hours, Reed screamed. The sound echoed through the ship, then gradually changed, becoming less human, more harmonic, as if the ship itself were learning to use his voice. And then, suddenly, silence. In the control room, Dr. Wells and Commander Paddle stared at the monitors in alarm. All vital signs have flatlined, a medical technician reported. No brain activity detected on standard scans. Captain Reed. Dr. Wells called into the microphone. James, can you hear me? Silence stretched for one heartbeat, then two. Then, one by one, the ship's systems began to activate. Displays lit up across the control room, showing diagnostic information, sensor readings, weapons status, all coming online without anyone's command. The massive engines hummed to life, sending vibrations through the entire facility. What's happening? Commander Paddle demanded. Dr. Wells stared at the readouts in awe. The integration. It worked, but differently than we expected. Look. She pointed to a neural activity scan that showed patterns spreading throughout the ship's entire electronic infrastructure. His consciousness isn't centered in his body anymore. It's distributed throughout the Nemesis. The lights in the control room dimmed, then brightened, then pulsed in a steady rhythm like a heartbeat. Captain Reed. Dr. Wells tried again. Are you there? This time, the response came not through the communication system, but through the ship itself. Every speaker, every display, every vibration in the hull shaped the words with perfect clarity. I am the Nemesis now. The voice was Reed's, but also something more, deeper, resonant with power and strange harmonics. Through the viewport, the crew watched in astonishment as the massive warship detached from its moorings without the use of thrusters, moving by will alone. The neural integration is complete, Dr. Wells whispered. God help us all. Alarms blared throughout the Anvil facility. The long-dreaded moment had arrived 2 days earlier than expected. Dominion scout ships had been detected at the edge of the asteroid field. 3 Dominion cruisers approaching from Sector 7, reported the sensor officer in the command center. They'll reach us in 20 minutes. Admiral Hobbs turned to Dr. Wells. Is the Nemesis ready? Before she could answer, the ship's voice filled the room. I am ready. It was still disconcerting to hear Reed's voice coming from everywhere at once. In the 2 days since the integration, The ship had been learning to use its new systems, but had not yet tested weapons or engaged in combat. "The evacuation shuttles need more time," Commander Patel said. "We have over 400 personnel to transport." Dr. Wells looked at the main view screen where the Nemesis now hovered just outside the facility. Its black hull seemed to shift and flow, absorbing sensor scans rather than reflecting them. "Captain Reed. I mean, Nemesis," she corrected herself. "Many of your weapon systems haven't been fully calibrated. The dark matter core has never been tested at combat power levels. The enemy doesn't care about test results." The ship responded. "Begin your evacuation. I will engage the Dominion vessels and draw them away from your position." Admiral Hobbs nodded grimly. "Do it." Inside the Nemesis, Reed's consciousness expanded through the ship's systems. He could no longer feel his human body, which remained in the integration chamber, sustained by medical equipment but empty of mind. Instead, he experienced the ship as his new body, powerful, vast, and hungry for battle. Reed/Nemesis moved away from the Anvil facility, accelerating with a grace impossible for a vessel of its size. As he approached the edge of the asteroid field, Reed extended his awareness through the sensor arrays, tasting the vacuum for signs of the enemy. There they were, 3 Dominion cruisers, their hulls gleaming a metallic purple under the distant sun. They moved in perfect formation, their sensors sweeping the asteroid field. Reed hesitated. How did one aim weapons when one was the weapon? How did one fly when one was the ship? 1,000 thoughts competed for his attention. Power levels in all sections, weapons charging status, shield integrity, navigation data. The Dominion ship's projected course. It was overwhelming, like trying to listen to 100 conversations at once. The lead Dominion cruiser fired first, a pulse of energy that Reed barely detected in time. He jerked sideways, the movement clumsy and uncoordinated. The energy blast grazed the Nemesis's port side, sending pain shooting through Reed's consciousness. "Focus," Reed told himself, his voice echoing through his own corridors. One system at a time. He concentrated on the weapons first. The Nemesis carried a main dark matter cannon and 16 smaller energy turrets. Reed activated 2 of the turrets, targeting the lead Dominion ship. The weapons fired, but Reed's aim was off. The energy bolts disappeared harmlessly into space. All 3 Dominion cruisers fired in response. This time, Reed couldn't evade. Multiple hits rocked the Nemesis, damaging the outer hull. Reed felt each impact as if it were striking his own flesh. He screamed, the sound reverberating through the ship. "Captain." Dr. Wells's voice came through the communication system. "Your shield modulation is off. Adjust to frequency 937. Reed tried to comply, but coordinating so many systems at once was still beyond his ability. The Dominion ships pressed their advantage, circling the Nemesis and firing from multiple angles. Behind him, Reed sensed the evacuation shuttles beginning to leave the Anvil facility. He had to buy them more time. Something shifted in Reed's awareness. The human part of him, the part still clinging to memories of family and duty, began to recede. In its place rose something colder, more calculating, yet burning with purpose. The dark matter core at the heart of the ship pulsed in rhythm with his rage. "Enough," Reed/Nemesis said, and this time the voice that echoed through space carried deadly intent. Reed stopped trying to control each system individually. Instead, he surrendered to the ship's design. The neural pathways Dr. Wells had created allowed for instinctive control, like moving a limb without conscious thought. The Nemesis responded instantly. It spun with impossible speed, bringing all weapons to bear on the lead Dominion cruiser. The dark matter cannon fired for the first time, a beam of pure black energy that seemed to bend space itself. The Dominion ship didn't explode. It imploded, crushed from all sides as the dark matter disrupted its structural integrity. The remaining 2 cruisers broke formation, clearly shocked by the sudden destruction of their leader. Reed pursued the closer one, moving faster than any ship of the Nemesis's size should be able to move. His sensors detected a weakness in the enemy's shield configuration, a gap that appeared for just milliseconds when they fired their main weapons. Reed timed his attack perfectly. The moment the Dominion ship fired, Reed launched a surgical strike through the momentary gap. The enemy cruiser's engines went dark, and it began to drift. The third Dominion vessel turned to flee. Reed felt a surge of predatory satisfaction. His sensors could detect the enemy ship's communication attempts. They were sending data about the Nemesis back to the main Dominion fleet. "Let them know what's coming for them," Reed whispered to himself. He allowed the damaged cruiser to escape, then turned back toward the Anvil facility. On his sensors, he could see the last evacuation shuttles departing. Among them was one carrying Dr. Wells and a command staff. "Nemesis, this is Dr. Wells." Her voice came through the communication channel. "Your performance was beyond our expectations, but I'm detecting concerning fluctuations in your neural patterns. The dark matter core responds to your emotional state. When your anger peaked during combat, power output increased by 300%. Reed considered this. He had felt it, the rush of power that came with rage, the way the ship's systems burned brighter when fueled by human emotion. "Is that a problem, Doctor?" he asked. There was a pause before she answered. "It could be. The boundary between you and the ship is dissolving faster than we anticipated. Your human neural patterns are being altered." Reed focused his sensors on the retreating Dominion ship. "Good," he said simply. "James," Dr. Wells said, her voice softer now, "are you still in there?" The question hung in the void between them. Reed searched within his vast new consciousness for the answer. Memories of his human life felt increasingly like data he had accessed rather than experiences he had lived. "I am here," he finally replied. "But I am becoming what Earth needs me to be." As the evacuation fleet jumped to light speed toward Earth, Reed/Nemesis remained at the Anvil facility, absorbing the remaining supplies and completing self-repairs. The Dominion would return soon, in greater numbers. And when they did, the most dangerous warship ever built would be waiting. Earth hung like a blue jewel against the blackness of space. Around it, the remnants of humanity's once proud defense fleet gathered, 19 ships of various sizes, many damaged, all that remained after months of devastating losses. They formed a protective ring around the planet, a last line of defense against the approaching doom. Admiral Hobbs stood on the bridge of the UFS Dauntless, his face grim as he studied the tactical display. Long-range sensors had detected the Dominion Armada entering the solar system. 30 capital ships, each one larger and more powerful than anything in the human fleet, were moving in perfect formation toward Earth. "We can't stop them," Commander Patel said quietly beside him. "Not with what we have." Hobbs nodded. "We can make them pay for every inch." The Admiral activated the fleet-wide communication channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Hobbs. The enemy will reach our position in 3 hours. Today we fight not just for our own lives, but for the survival of our species. Hold the line. No retreat." As he finished speaking, sensor alarms blared across the bridge. "Sir," called out the sensor officer, "something's coming in fast from the outer system." Hobbs turned to the main view screen. A dark shape was moving toward them at impossible speed, crossing the distance from Jupiter's orbit in minutes rather than hours. "Is it Dominion?" Hobbs demanded. The sensor officer shook his head in confusion. "No, sir. It's the Nemesis." A collective gasp swept through the bridge. The black warship decelerated as it approached Earth's orbit, moving with a grace that belied its massive size. The communication system activated without command, and Reed's voice, deeper now, with strange harmonic undertones, filled the bridge. "Admiral Hobbs, Earth Defense Fleet, I have returned." Hobbs couldn't help the smile that broke across his face. "Captain Reed, your timing is impeccable." "I am no longer simply Reed," the ship responded, "but I remember my oath to protect Earth." From the science station, Dr. Wells studied the readings with growing concern. The Nemesis had changed since they'd last seen it. The hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, and the energy signature from the dark matter core was unlike anything she'd ever recorded. "What happened out there?" she asked over the channel. "I evolved," the Nemesis replied simply. "After you left, I completed the integration process. I discovered abilities Dr. Wells never designed. Abilities that emerged from the union of human consciousness and dark matter technology. To demonstrate, the Nemesis suddenly vanished from its position, then reappeared 10,000 kilometers away. "Spatial folding," the ship explained. "I can bend space for short jumps. I can also predict enemy actions seconds before they occur, and channel dark energy through my hull to absorb damage." Dr. Wells shook her head in amazement. "The theoretical applications alone." "There's no time," Hobbs interrupted. "The Dominion fleet will be here soon. Can you help us fight them?" There was a pause before the Nemesis responded. "I can do more than fight. I can end this war. But I need the fleet to protect the civilian evacuation ships if my plan fails." "What plan?" Hobbs asked. "The one with the highest probability of success," the Nemesis answered, its tone now cold and calculating. "Admiral, deploy your ships in formation Delta 6. I will engage the Dominion fleet directly." The Dominion Armada emerged from Lightspeed in perfect attack formation. 30 ships arranged in a three-dimensional spearhead. Their hulls gleamed purple-black under the light of Sol, weapons already charging. The lead ship, twice the size of the others, and bearing the marks of the Dominion High Command, broadcast a message on all frequencies. "Humans of Earth, your resistance ends today. Surrender and accept extinction with dignity." Admiral Hobbs stood on his bridge, watching the overwhelming force approach. He opened his mouth to give the order to engage when another voice cut across all channels. "This is the USS Nemesis to Dominion Fleet. Earth is under my protection. Retreat or be destroyed." The Dominion ships paused, clearly surprised by the unexpected challenge. Without waiting for a response, the Nemesis accelerated directly toward the center of the Dominion formation. It moved faster than any human or Dominion ship, weaving through the first volley of enemy fire with impossible precision. The Nemesis fired its main dark matter cannon, the beam cutting through the shields of a Dominion destroyer as if they weren't there. The ship imploded, crushed by forces that defied conventional physics. The Dominion fleet responded with coordinated fire, dozens of energy beams converging on the Nemesis. But the black warship performed another spatial fold, disappearing from the point of impact and reappearing behind the enemy formation. 2 more Dominion ships fell to the Nemesis's weapons before the aliens adjusted their tactics, spreading out to prevent the human ship from targeting them in groups. Deep within the Nemesis, Reed observed the battle with cold clarity. His human memories had faded further, becoming distant echoes overshadowed by the vast awareness of the ship. But something remained. A core of human determination, a spark of the man who had volunteered to save his species. As the battle raged, Reed noted with detached interest that the Dominion ships were adapting. Their weapons were becoming more effective, their formations more resistant to his attacks, and the dark matter core was approaching critical limits. Sustaining this level of combat was draining the ship's resources faster than expected. A concentrated attack from 5 Dominion cruisers breached the Nemesis's outer hull. Reed felt the damage as distant pain, watching system failures cascade through his awareness. "Nemesis, pull back." Admiral Hobbs ordered over the communication channel. "The evacuation ships need more time." Reed scanned the battlefield. He had destroyed 7 Dominion ships, but 23 remained, including the command vessel. At current combat efficiency, the Nemesis would be destroyed before eliminating the entire enemy fleet. A new calculation presented itself, one with a 97.8% probability of success, but at total cost. For a moment, Reed hesitated. Deep in what remained of his human consciousness, faces appeared, his wife and daughter, long dead. Commander Patel's determined expression. Dr. Wells's calculating eyes hiding her guilt and concern. Admiral Hobbs, Reed transmitted. It has been an honor to serve with you. Reed, what are you? The Nemesis performed one final spatial fold, reappearing at the heart of the Dominion formation, directly alongside the command ship. Before the enemy could react, Reed initiated the dark matter cascade, a controlled collapse of the core that Dr. Wells had specifically designed to be impossible for Earth. Reed said, his voice echoing across all frequencies. By blood and bold will. The Nemesis's hull began to glow with black energy as the dark matter core destabilized. The Dominion command ship attempted to retreat, but it was too late. Space itself seemed to warp and bend around the Nemesis. Then, with a silent flash that sensors across the solar system would record but never fully explain, the Nemesis, the Dominion command ship, and 6 nearby enemy vessels vanished into a localized singularity that collapsed upon itself a moment later. The remaining Dominion ships, suddenly leaderless and witness to a weapon beyond their understanding, broke formation. One by one, they jumped to light speed, retreating from the solar system. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Admiral Hobbs watched in silence as the enemy fled. Beside him, Dr. Wells wiped tears from her eyes. Could he have survived? Commander Patel asked quietly. Dr. Wells shook her head. No human could survive that. No ship either. Yet 3 days later, as Earth began the long process of rebuilding, a faint signal was detected from the distorted region of space where the Nemesis had disappeared. Irregular pattern, repeating endlessly, a perfect match for Captain James Reed's brainwave signature. Some said it was just radiation echoes. Others believed it was something more. That somehow, in some form beyond human understanding, the consciousness that was once a man and then a warship continued to exist, watching over the species he had sacrificed everything to save. On the 1-year anniversary of the battle, humanity unveiled a memorial in orbit above Earth, a simple black obelisk bearing the words, Captain James Reed and the USS Nemesis. By blood and bold will, humanity endures.